Welcome to the Deep Dive from the DoubleTake podcast channel. Today we're diving headfirst into a topic that it feels both incredibly modern and also profoundly ancient. We're talking about the end of the unknown.
That's right. And you, our listener, have handed us this fascinating stack of sources, a really powerful blend of psychological research, some sociological critique, and even philosophical inquiry. All of it focused on one big central idea: the death of mystery.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Our mission today is to explore how our hyper-connected instant access world is fundamentally reshaping not just what we know, but how we know it.
Exactly.
We're shifting from a world where curiosity, it required real effort, a trip to the library, finding an expert, or just sitting and thinking for a while. And now any question is it's a 0.2-second search query. The friction is basically gone.
And that removal of friction, that's the absolute heart of this whole discussion. Our sources are highlighting this critical tension. We're moving from knowledge, which is, internalized wisdom that you build through struggle.
Yeah. Just something they call information, which is essentially just raw external data. So if everything we need is just out there in the cloud, what does that mean for our intuition? For our ability to actually think?
Such a subtle but massive difference. Let's start with the hard data. Let's dive into section 1, the epistemological collapse. What are the measurable effects on our minds?
Well, this is where we run right into digital amnesia, or what most people know as the Google effect.
Yeah.
It's based on research by Betsy Sparrow's team at Columbia. And the core finding is, it's crucial. People are significantly less inclined to deeply encode information, to actually remember it, when they know they can just look it up online later.
See, this is where it gets really interesting for me, because it's not just, being forgetful. It's an active cognitive strategy.
It's a strategy.
The brain is making a kind of cost-benefit calculation. It's saying, the internet is my external hard drive, so why waste the energy to internalize this?
Yeah.
But hang on, isn't that just efficient? Why shouldn't we outsource?
That is the critical challenge here. Yes, it is efficient for retrieving data, but the sources argue it's really detrimental to complex thought. The problem isn't that we forget the data.
Okay.
It's that we never perform the essential cognitive work on the data. You don't process it. You don't connect it to 5 other things you learned last week. You don't dream about it.
So the mystery is gone before the brain even has a chance to, play with the idea?
Precisely. When that gap of the unknown is instantly filled by an algorithm, the brain's puzzle-solving muscles, its connection-building muscles, they just atrophy.
They get weak.
They get weak. Intuition isn't magic, It's just deeply processed knowledge bubbling up fast. If you bypass that deep processing because the answer's already there, you are systematically eroding your ability to build wisdom. You might be information-rich, but you become intuition-poor.
That reframing just completely changes how I see my own quick searches. Okay, so we have to zoom out now. How does this individual atrophy, how does it play out on a societal level? This brings us to section 2 and the work of the French sociologist Jean Baudrillard.
Right, Baudrillard. His core idea is hyperreality. The simulation or the image of a thing comes to precede and often just flat out replace the real thing. It's an artificial reality that starts to feel more real than the actual world.
The sources have this really powerful analogy for that, the map swallowing the territory.
Yes.
Think about travel. When we use Google Street View to look at every corner of a place or scroll through hundreds of perfect Instagram photos before we even get there, the sources say the physical location is no longer a discovery.
It just becomes a confirmation. You don't arrive with that sense of wide-eyed exploration.
No.
You're not driven by the unknown. You're just there to check if the digital images you already consumed were, in fact, accurate. You've already been oriented by the digital ghost of the place.
And the sources use this fantastic term for that feeling, gizemsizlik. It's Turkish, I believe. It means the absolute absence of mystery. When you confirm reality instead of discovering it, that's the feeling that sets in.
Precisely. And this pre-confirmation of reality has, devastating implications for how we interact with the most complex thing in our lives, other people.
Which leads directly to what the sources call stock culture.
Mm-hmm.
That practice of doing extensive digital research before you meet someone, checking their LinkedIn, their old social media. It feels almost necessary now, doesn't it?
It does. It feels like due diligence. But what you're doing is transforming a complex, unknown person into a curated, searchable file.
A file.
Sociologists call it pre-meeting objectification. By creating this dossier beforehand, you approach the person not as a mystery to solve together, but as a problem for which you already have 80% of the answers
You take away their right to tell their own story.
in their own time, with their own voice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which brings up the really provocative questions from the sources. If you already know everything about someone before they open their mouth, are you on a first date or are you just conducting a very well-prepared job interview?
And what's the emotional cost of that? I mean, what is the cost of eliminating that mystery?
It has to be empathy.
It's the fundamental element. Empathy requires us to step into an unknown space,
Yeah.
to try and understand an experience that isn't ours. If we replace that unknown with data, we risk reducing the other person to a predictable object. And that just kills any chance for a deep connection or for surprise.
We end up creating a world of very efficient but ultimately very boring relationships. It makes a scary amount of sense. If efficiency is the highest value, mystery is the first thing to go. Okay, let's shift gears. Section 3, the psychological short circuit. The sources suggest we've developed a kind of an evolutionary phobia of uncertainty.
Yes, the state of not knowing is no longer seen as natural. It's viewed as a failure. We've normalized instant access so much that any kind of informational lag actually triggers anxiety.
You can feel it, can't you? A question pops into your head, and the idea of just letting it sit there for an hour it's uncomfortable.
It's deeply uncomfortable. Your thumb is already opening the search bar before the thought is even fully formed.
So why is that reflex so powerful?
It's the dopamine cycle. And it's a brilliant but a dangerous neuroscientific trick. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter of desire, it's released at its absolute peak, not when we get the answer, but when we're searching for it.
During the anticipation.
Yes, the brain is optimized for the hunt, the chase, that tension of the unknown. That's the rewarding part.
The 0.2-second answer is the trap. It just eliminates the tension instantly.
Correct. It completely short-circuits the natural dopamine loop. We evolved to enjoy the slow process of discovery, the aha moment. Now we consume the data before our brain has even registered the reward for anticipating.
So we're just digital consumers, constantly learning tiny facts but never feeling satisfied.
Exactly. We're always scratching an itch, but never getting that deep relief that comes from solving a complex problem internally.
And this need for instant closure, it doesn't just mess with satisfaction, it hits our creativity too.
Absolutely. This links to what psychologists call the cognitive need for closure, the drive to eliminate ambiguity. And while closure feels good for a moment, the sources argue it just bakes. It kills creativity. It kills art, philosophical thought.
Because all that thrives in the uncertainty.
It thrives in the tension. You have to sit in that uncomfortable puzzle long enough for your subconscious to start making those weird, novel connections.
Yeah.
If the puzzle is instantly solved, the creativity engine never even gets a chance to turn over.
So if we always choose clarity over tension, we get efficiency, but we sacrifice any chance for a real breakthrough.
Which brings us to the really core anxiety behind all of this. If convenience is so efficient, why do we still yearn for mystery so much?
That's the big question, isn't it? Section 4. If a world that's entirely measurable and explainable is, as the sources say, a cold world, what is the real cost of losing mystery on a spiritual level?
The sources connect the death of mystery directly to the loss of the sacred. When everything can be reduced to data, we lose our sense of awe, of wonder, and maybe more critically, we see the end of privacy. We lose the ability to have a secret internal life.
The sources talk about losing our inner castle.
Yes, that's a beautiful way to put it. The individual's right to retreat into a protected space, a space of private thought, that's essential for mental health. This modern anxiety epidemic is directly linked to this feeling of digital nakedness.
When you're fully traceable, fully searchable.
There's no inner castle left to hide in. We feel exposed because there are no unknowns left, not even to ourselves.
So if that's the problem, the solution can't be to just abandon technology. That's impossible. It has to be something else.
It has to be intentional resistance. We need an epistemological diet.
Creating areas of conscious ignorance.
It's not a philosophical game anymore. It's a mental health necessity. We have to intentionally stop outsourcing our curiosity and start rebuilding those internal muscles.
So how do we do that, practically? The sources give 3 main methods. First is conscious serendipity.
This is about forcing chance back into your life. You have to actively step outside the algorithmic bubble that just feeds you more of what you already like.
So read a book from a genre you've never touched.
Yes.
Or get lost on purpose without a map.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let your own intuitive orientation skills wake up again.
The second one is digital asceticism, Voluntarily choosing not to know? That sounds incredibly difficult.
It is. It requires a real act of restraint, deliberately creating an information gap. It's refusing to Google the person you're about to meet for coffee. It's skipping the movie trailer.
Choosing the discomfort of the unknown over the easy data injection. And I think the third one is the most challenging, slow information.
This is all about resisting that instant search reflex. A question pops up like, what was the capital of the Austro-Hungarian Empire? Instead of grabbing your phone, you let it sit. You think about it for a day.
You let your mind build its own connections around the question first.
You build an internal context before you seek the external solution. It completely reframes the act of learning.
This has been, wow. We've seen today that the efficiency of instant information, it comes at this huge existential cost to our satisfaction, our creativity, our human connections. The challenge really isn't to avoid the tools we have.
No, not at all.
It's to exercise intentional restraint, to reclaim the mental real estate that algorithms have started to colonize.
And I think the ultimate question that comes out of all this is this. If everything can be instantly retrieved and consumed, are we paying for it by losing the very ability to feel deep longing or excited anticipation for anything at all?
Oh.
When that tension is always resolved instantly, the pleasure of the wait, the very thing that defines desire, is just eliminated. That instantaneousness is the ultimate silent cost of convenience that you have to explore for yourself.
If that struck a chord with you, we'd love for you to try one of these methods this week. Choose not to Google that one little fact. Skip the trailer. Leave the map at home. And then let us know what happens when you choose conscious ignorance over instant information.